today to have Jerry McDonald here with us. Jerry is a shareholder in the firm of Pickrel, Schaeffer, and Ebling. He's practicing law. We came here after practicing law in Michigan. Thank you for coming to Ohio. In Michigan, Jerry served as a legal general counsel for the city of Leslie and was a member of the Michigan Association of Municipal Lawyers. Along with his municipal work, Jerry also represents several manufacturers, developers, physicians, and business owners. He provided legal services to churches and nonprofits, both as a board member and outside counsel. Since joining Pickrel, Schaeffer, and Ebling, much of Jerry's work has been in land use and governmental law. Jerry served as the law director for the city of Vandalia since 2005, law director for the city of Springboro since 2020, and formerly served as law director for the city of Huber Heights from 2017 to 2023. Along with representing these cities, Jerry also provides legal services to other municipalities and townships regarding real estate and development matters. He is a regular speaker at seminars and events on issues involving local zoning and planning, as well as Ohio public records law. Jerry also works with private sector clients in areas of commercial transactions, leasing, and general real estate law. Jerry has a strong practice in the intellectual property area, concentrating on trademarks and copyright matters. He's a member of the Ohio State Bar Association Intellectual Property Law Section Council, board member of the Dayton-Montgomery County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Dayton Area Charitable Association of Public Employees, and advises several other nonprofits, including Springboro Community Theater and Yellow Springs Development Corporation. Jerry lives in Springboro with his wife Jennifer. He has 3 daughters and 2 sons. In his free time, you got any free time now? In his free time, Jerry plays guitar and piano and enjoys traveling with the family. Thank you for your generosity coming and speaking today, and I will turn it over to you.
Most of my free time is sitting around listening to my bio being read. I did not realize it was that long. My apologies, everybody. Yeah. I have the awful position of talking just before lunch. It is the worst time to talk in a seminar other than just after lunch. So, but great news, I have such a wonderful topic here. You guys are going to be at the edge of your chairs. That's my mug there. Yeah, I can't give you any legal advice. They frown against that. So everything I say is just, chit-chat for that matter. But let's start talking about public records. First thing I have to say is, nobody likes getting a speeding ticket, right? Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that. Got audience participation. So how do you avoid getting a speeding ticket? You have to know what the speed limit is. We're going to talk a little bit now about open meetings. So what do you need to know? What is a meeting? You're like, it's when we all sit around and talk. You will understand why this is a topic in just a minute. That is the definition of a meeting under the Ohio Revised Code. And it is, let me see here, where am I here? Nobody wants to, everybody knows what a meeting is. Okay, I'm cool. We're going to talk about each one of these different sections. The first one is that it has to be a pre-arranged gathering, not happenstance. Happenstance, that's what somebody in a bow tie uses. That's just one of those words that people expect from a guy in a bow tie. Planned emails. You're like, who plans an email? Well, not very many people, but when you send an email to your fellow council members to say, hey, we're all set on this XYZ zoning in the City of Chaos. I loved that. I don't know where he went, but I love the City of Chaos. And then another person responds to that, that's a council member, and says, well, I think that we should probably push it off to another meeting. Then someone else says, well, no, this is really important. I think suddenly you have a bunch of people talking. Was it planned? No. But if I'm looking before I start, I'm planning on intending according to the courts. So a bunch of emails is considered a prearranged or a planned event. So I have a good friend in the city of Huber Heights. His name is Tony Rogers, and he is their clerk of council. He gets copied on all emails, and every time the third council member responds, he sends out a big notice saying, you're about ready to enter a meeting under the Public Records Act. Do not respond all. And the good council members then delete him from the chain and keep talking. So, oh man, I'm getting all tangled up in my stuff here. There's basically 3 types of meetings. That's it. There's your regular meeting, there's a special meeting, and there's an emergency meeting. The regular meeting is check your charter, check whatever it is. There's something in your city that says we are going to meet on the 1st and 3rd, whatever, or on every 2nd Tuesday, whatever it might be. That is your regular meeting. A special meeting is anything that happens outside the regular meeting. Well, it's a budget workshop, it's not a meeting. No, it's a meeting. It's a study session, it's a work session. None of those are. They are all special meetings. Whenever you are in a group and you see your fellow compadres that are on council, first thing that should pop into your head is, am I in the meeting? Because if not, then you're going to need to have that little red flag, like, oh, something might be up here, because we can only talk about things when we're in a meeting. Sorry, I ramble so much when I do these things that I said, this time I'm keeping notes, I'm going to keep on track. I won't, trust me. And it's not just a gathering, it has to be a gathering of the majority. Now, that seems easy enough. You walk into the room, and I have literally walked into a back room before a council meeting and went, 2, 3, 4, 5, damn it, and turned around and walked out because I didn't want to know about it. You can't have more than a majority in the room talking about business of the city, or you're having a meeting, even if that's before the meeting. When you're, well, what are you going to do? Well, I saw Bert here, and you know how he's going to talk. We got to shut Bert down, whatever it might be. If there's a majority, separate, because if Bert doesn't get whatever it is Bert wanted, first thing Bert's going to do is get that video camera, the tape from that as a public records, and have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and guess what? It comes with volume. Turn it up. What are they talking about? They're talking about me, a legal public record. Got to watch out for that stuff. It's not the same as a quorum. Now, just about everyone here, if I had to bet money, I would say the definition of a quorum and the definition of the majority of council in your village or your city is the same. And it probably is. But the law defines a quorum as a group of the majority of the public body unless otherwise defined. So you could have a charter or a code that defines a quorum differently. I doubt it. That is used mostly with boards and commissions because they always have problems with people showing up. So they set quorums at less than a majority. I'm sorry, I keep posing here. If it's not a majority, are we okay? I get that a lot. But there was only 4 of us right there. There was only 4 of us in the meeting. City manager said, I need to talk to you guys about this economic development project. You know, mayor and council member X, council member Y, let's have this discussion. And y'all talk about it. And then y'all get, you know, yeah, this looks like a good project. This looks like a good project. Thanks a lot. After lunch, council member A, B, and C come in to talk with the city manager about the same thing. Was there ever a majority? No. But there was a meeting of the majority, and that was called a round robin. And the city of Cincinnati got dinged pretty hard about that because that's what the city manager did. He never had a majority of council, but he talked to every council, and every meeting was built on the previous one. Well, the mayor said he wants to go this way, and conducted business. That is a no-no. One of the things you got to rethink about, at least, is if a decision is made in a meeting that is not properly called, anything that stems from it is invalid. Kind of think about that and just think, okay, so we are going to do this and this and this, and it's all set, and we sold our property, and they started building on our property, and Bert, I don't know if anyone here's name is Bert, I just made that up, pulled it out of the air, but he's my troublemaker for the antagonist for this whole presentation now. Bert doesn't like the project. Bert finds out that it was from an illegal meeting. Bert shuts it down. The court puts an injunction down, and things don't go well for your city or village because everybody and their brother is truly in the city of chaos at that time. By the way, ask me questions at any point. Don't have me. Yes. I knew you would, because you had questions last time. Someone back there does too, but go ahead.
Some time ago, 3 or 4 people came to a meeting like this.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said, oh no, you all can't ride together because that would be considered a meeting. You all should not be in the same car together.
Wow, did you guys all plan to drive together? Uh-huh. Ooh, that's prearranged. Ah. Is there a majority? Uh-huh. Uh-oh. Are you discussing or deliberating public business? No, we're just going to Yankee Trace to get some breakfast and lunch and talk about something. Not a problem.
That's what.
Not a problem. And I do get that a lot. One thing that I get is we had a meeting of council. There is 9 council members, make it up. We need 5. Only 4 are there. So it's not a majority, not a quorum, not a meeting. But 3 of the 4 that are there are the 3 members of the Solar Eclipse Committee, which is a committee formed by council. And they are all freaking out because we do have a meeting after all. Was it prearranged? Well, yeah, we were all told to come here at the same time. Is it a majority of that committee? Because it's a committee of a public body, or a majority of the public body, doesn't mean council or the commission. Could be a committee. Yeah. Are you discussing or deliberating public business? Oh my gosh, yes. About your committee? No. Then you don't have a problem. So you don't have to freak out. You just make sure you're not talking about the public business. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And remember, this does not need to be in person. This can be email, it can be Zoom, it can be via text message. Anytime you have a majority of your public body that is something that seems to be prearranged, and remember, email chains are deemed by the courts to be prearranged, you could have a problem. There's 2 different words there, discussing or deliberating. What's deliberating? Deliberating means, well, I don't know about this, I think about this. Discussing is just that, discussing. You can't do either in terms of a public record, or excuse me, an open meeting. When we go on a little bit further in here, we're going to talk about executive session. And in executive session, you can discuss all you want, but you can't deliberate. So there is a distinction between those 2 words. I have no idea what slide I am on this compared to what's up here now, so I am not very good. Oh, I know what this is. This is our quiz. All right, pop quiz time, just like back in grade school. All right, our solar committee, we all remember them. It's you, whoever you are, and your good friend Peter and Paul. All right, you guys make up the Solar Eclipse Committee. This is a big deal. This is not just some committee. There's going to be thousands of people. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. Important committee. You go over to the grocery store. There's Peter looking at the green beans. Walk up to Peter and you kind of talk about green bean recipes and stuff like that. And then he says, you know, should we get a DJ or a live band? And you're like, oh, I like a DJ. I think a live band's going to be too hard. Yeah, I agree. We'll do that. Do we have a problem under the Public Records Act? How many say yes? How many say no? Well, it's just 2 people talking in the grocery store. It's the majority of the board discussing and actually kind of deliberating on a particular topic.
But is it city business?
It's the committee business.
Okay.
Wasn't prearranged.
No, it was not prearranged. It is not a meeting. Even though they broke the other 2, it's still not a meeting because it wasn't prearranged. So that's kind of a funky thing. So if they go to the meeting and say, well, I make a motion that we do a DJ. I second. Let's all vote. Yes, yes, no. The other person who wasn't buying green beans says no. There could be an issue there because the decision stemmed from an illegal meeting, but only if it was an illegal meeting. And the court's going to say, you know, you guys are on the Solar Eclipse Committee. You got 2 days left. You run into each other. What are you going to do? Talk about your grandchildren? No, you're going to talk about this. Yeah. And so you would be okay there. Now, how about this one? Council Member Mark, oh gosh, he's a fun guy. He's having a Christmas party and you're all invited. All of council is invited to your Christmas party. And you're there and everybody's drinking the punch because Mark makes a wicked good punch. And someone says, I can't believe that Phil wants to rezone his property industrial. That is, when that comes up, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I agree. And suddenly, all 5 council members are talking about Phil. Do we have a problem here? Why do we have a problem here? Talking about Christmas business, majority of the members. Well, damn, you guys learned something. Yeah, you have a problem there. Very good, very good, very good. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is what us people who've been doing this kind of stuff for 30 years just call the Yellow Book. Do you guys know what the Yellow Book is, what the Ohio Sunshine Law Book is? Does anybody not know or is not clear what this book is? Excellent. It's online, and if you just say, I don't want to raise my hand, you just put Ohio Yellow Book, Public Records, it'll pop up. It has everything you would ever want to know. And one of the things it says is that, you know, if you guys are just kind of getting together to get information, you're all going to the whatever, to the property, just to see the property line, to see where that berm's going to be, to see that. You're not going to make any decisions. I mean, that's not a meeting. So is it? We don't know. And why am I bringing this up? Is the Public Records book is really good, but it is not the law. It is a guidebook. And so if you have questions, make sure you speak with your law director. Because even though that last page right there that I had is directly from that, which says, it's okay. The Ohio Supreme Court never ruled on it. Some of the courts did, including 2 that are very local here, Warren and Butler, and they said, yeah, it's not a meeting. But Montgomery County, Greene County, right next door, they haven't ruled on it. It is not predetermined. That could be a meeting because it's prearranged, it has a majority, and there's going to be a learning experience. And so going to be some discussion. You know, you have to be careful. I have a community that is taking its council members to its water treatment area so they can get an idea of what it is. And they're invited. It's not going to really be a meeting. They're just going to come in there. But they said, well, we're all meeting at the same time. They're probably going to talk about this stuff. They advertised it as a meeting. Probably a very smart thing to do. Doesn't hurt. Now, there's some provisions in your charter that say all meetings shall be held in the da-da-da-da-da. And so if your public works or water treatment facility is in another town or in the township, which sometimes happens, got to watch out for that type of thing. What if it's not our meeting? The school board's going to come and discuss the possibility of moving down to Main Street from where they are now. Oh my goodness, the school buses in the morning, this is not going to work. This is awful. We don't want that. I'm going to the school board meeting to find out what they do, says the mayor. So am I, says council member 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got all 9 council members sitting at the school board meeting, a meeting that is noticed, that is advertised. Do we have a problem? I see a lot of heads doing this. We only have a problem if the council members start talking to each other. If they come up to the school board and say, are you guys idiots? This is crazy, blah, 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 and sit back down, that's not it. If all 9 of them come up and express their views, not a problem. If all 9 of them start arguing amongst themselves, you got a problem. Sometimes you might say, well, we're going to meet with the school board to discuss this. Let's do a joint meeting. You can do that. Both bodies have to advertise the meeting. It is a meeting of the school board. It is a meeting of the council. Both advertise it, both do it, joint meeting. Here's the thing a lot of people don't know. You say, well, all our meetings have to be open. If you have a charter provision that says city council can go into public, can close the door of public meetings to discuss zoning issues. First of all of you would go, oh, hot damn, that is good. That is something good, because zoning issues are a pain. That will work. A charter can trump the sunshine law, because a charter is of local concern. But 99.9% of your charters do not say that. And you say, well, we have the Charter Review Commission coming up, and we can just put that. Okay, sitting bodies of the government that get voted in, which one of you wants to tell the voters, we want to have private, secret meetings? I'd love to see it. You could, but, probably not going to happen. Let's see, do I have anything else about that one? No Supreme Court rule, school board meeting, charter can trump. Oh yeah, and then I have one.
Can we say that, because we used to do this, our budget meetings, when we talked about our budget appropriation for next year, we consider them just private at one time. So we let people come in, but we don't allow them to speak, because they'll have an opportunity later. So can we allow them not, can we disallow them to speak?
Absolutely. There's two types, let me back up. First of all, your budget meeting, in case you didn't hear, they generally do that. Nobody shows up, first of all. But if someone did, it's open. They can sit in there. And can they scoff and go, oh, that's so stupid? Oh, yeah, they can. If they're disruptive, you can boot them out. Do you have to let them talk? Absolutely not, because there's two things. There is a public meeting, and everybody has the right to show up at a public meeting and watch the meeting and listen and learn. That's it. They don't have any right to speak unless you have a code provision, charter provision, some kind of rule that says, here's how our meetings will be held, and you have a part for public comment. And most regular meetings just generally have that. And most city councils that have the very vocal minorities tend to amend those to say, we're going to put public comment the very end of the meeting after all the things have been done, because it just makes life easier. So you can move that. So, but a public meeting, they can only speak if they are invited to speak, or your charter says. A public hearing is not the same. A public hearing is public, but a public hearing is something that is required to take input from the public. So if it is a public hearing, they get to talk. Now, you can make the rules. You get to talk about the school bus and the moving of the schools, but you can't talk about the liquor license on Main Street. Because, why is that? Because a budget meeting is not a regular meeting. It is a special meeting. And on a special meeting, and this is exactly why I have these notes, because I'm going to talk about this at some point, but now I'm totally off. A special meeting can only be called for a certain topic, and that's all you can talk about at a special meeting. So if it's a special meeting to discuss the traffic on the new school, you're not talking about liquor licenses, you're not talking about anything else except what's in there. So what happens when you're at this special meeting, because the school board's going to vote in a couple days, and you guys got to decide if you're going to come out for it or against it, whatever it might be. You're going to have a special meeting for a certain purpose. And the day before that, you find out that the assistant finance director in charge of constitutional issues, whatever it might be, somebody, an important person, was just arrested for child abuse, something awful. And the city manager says, Bert was just arrested. This is going to hit the press tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of Bert. Can you do that at a special meeting? No, because Bert's not on the agenda. Can you go to executive session to discuss whether we should buy the property of the school and avoid all this? Yes, because that is on the agenda. Questions? Oh, I didn't even get to this. Meetings, you got 3 things you got to do for a meeting. First one is you got to provide notice. And if you go into the Ohio Revised Code or even the Yellow Book and you say, how much notice do I have to give for a meeting? Let me know when you find it. About all that's there anywhere is that if it's an emergency meeting, it has to be like 24 hours or something like that. There's one meeting that has nothing else in there. It's all up to the local communities. So you would look at your rules and it will say, all meetings have to have 1 week notice, be published, whatever it is. The notice is controlled by the local meeting. I was going to say something, I can't remember now. I'm sorry, I keep stopping and pausing here. The special meetings, again, you have to have the purpose of the meeting and the place. Man, I had a great thing down there to say. Can't find it right now. 3 duties, movies, notice, matter of rules. Oh, yeah, I think I already touched on this, actually. The notice for a regular meeting is just the time and the place. Usually there's an agenda that goes with it, but if something comes up at a regular meeting, you can amend the agenda. You can add stuff that is not even in the agenda, subject to your charter. Pass legislation, usually, if it's an emergency legislation, even though it's not on the agenda, because it's at a regular meeting. Cannot do that at a special meeting.
Special emergency meetings, purpose of the meeting, it seems pretty general.
Mm-hmm.
If the meeting is being called, let's say it's your economic development committee of council, and the purpose of the meeting, and the person who's your chairman of that is going to have an agenda. Should the agenda be posted, or can you just say purpose? When you say the purpose of the meeting, everything on the agenda is what the purpose of the meeting is. How specific do you have to be?
Totally up to you. As a law director, I say be broad because you never know where it's going to take you. To discuss, for the school thing, to discuss the potential new school building and issues related thereto. That's my kind of get out of jail free card.
If it's a public meeting and somebody comes to you on a committee and wants to talk, maybe not exactly what's on the agenda.
Then they can't.
They can, okay.
Yep. Now, even with a regular meeting, you have a obligation to have them speak. Or you don't have an obligation to speak. I'm sorry. At a public hearing, you have a meeting. At a special meeting, you don't usually have the rules that say, here for our regular meeting is the agenda, which includes public speaking, or comments from interested parties, or whatever it might be. Special meeting, you don't have those. So you don't have to listen to anybody at a special meeting. They can come and partake if you want them. You could say, hey, I see we have the traffic engineer in the audience. Mr. Smith, can you come up, or whatever. That is all possible, but they don't have a right to come up and speak.
But I'm confused what a special meeting is.
Your regular meeting is, do you have a council meeting like twice a month?
Yes, but then we also have committee meetings that we advertise.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have 3 council people that are on the committee, so that constitutes an open public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But then people from the community obviously can come.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when they come to that meeting, and there's a purpose that's been stated, is that a special meeting or is that a regular meeting? Because those committees meet every month.
If it is a regular meeting that is required to be held, and some committees just are popped up for a purpose, and when the purpose is done, they're done. They're still subject to the Open Meetings Act. And if they come by in their first meeting say, we're going to meet every Monday at 3 until this thing is resolved, that's probably a regular meeting because it's at a certain time, certain place, and everybody knows it's happening. A special meeting is just one like, okay, well, when are we going to get together, which is typical for committees. Okay, well, we're going to get together Thursday, and then your clerk says, I need 6 days to notice it under our charter, so you have to have it next week, something like that. But those meetings, the committee meetings, are probably more likely special meetings than regular meetings. And the committee is not going to be talking about the bar if it's the solar eclipse committee. So you can only talk about your stuff anyway. So notice is number 1. Oh, sorry.
Is a work session considered a special meeting?
Yes. Unless, well, no, you don't, an agenda is not the same as the notice. When you set, you have to send notice out that says, here's the meeting, here's when, and where. That's for a regular meeting. If it's a work session, you're supposed to say, here's when, here's why, and here's the purpose. And while many people figure that's going to be a bear because we're going to be discussing a lot of things, they just put it on an agenda and say the special meeting will be the agenda items, and that's what we're talking about. So you don't necessarily have to have an agenda if you have it on your notice, but for work sessions and stuff like that that are regularly held before meetings, there's almost always an agenda, and that's the reason. And I see a lot of council members at work sessions start to get off topic and start talking about something that's not there, and in my head, the first thing I do is say, okay, this sort of relates to the school because he drives a yellow van and that's like a bus. Whatever I can do to try to do it. If I can't figure out how to put them together, I might say, well, we need to get back on topic. But the funny thing is the way you guys think. Something comes up that is on the discussion and makes you think about something else, but they have the same relation kind of. There's usually a nexus. So, you know, they'll let you go. You know, what the purpose is you have a work session and somebody looks at it and says, okay, the rezoning of the 300-acre parcel is not on the agenda, I don't have to go. And at the special meeting, the developer's there and you talk about that. That's a problem. Yeah.
Just kind of piggyback on maybe you want to say, can I amend the agenda? You guys in favor of talk about public works, we're going to talk about 312, and I want to amend the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to talk about 3 number 3. Is that violating?
If it's a special meeting, probably not. If it's if your committee meets at a regular time, then you should be okay. Yeah. I'd love to say, here's the rules, follow them, but it's like an insurance policy, you know, for every claim there's an exception. And so you just never, you know, every little thing you have to look at. So you have to have notice for meetings. I think we beat that one up. It has to be open. We kind of talked about this. Open meeting just means that people can come to it. I had somebody say, can we close the door? And I was like, why do you want to close the door? And they said, well, because every time at 7 o'clock when we hold our meeting, the guy's buffing the floor in the hallway because that's what time he works. I'm like, well, change the time you buff is. But yes, you can close the door if it's noisy and things like that. Some places you don't have the option, but what you can't do is make it where the public who walks in says, can I even go in there? You know, it's got to be pretty obvious. And most places have signs. Here's the meeting with big arrows and stuff like that. Little code provision for you, open. Let's see here, let everyone in. You can remove somebody who is being disturbing, you know, kind of stopping the meeting and stuff like that. Be very careful because this is America and the public has the right to go to a public meeting. And if you're throwing them out just because they disagree with what you're saying, you have a problem. If you're throwing them out because every time someone else talks, they talk over them and yell and scream, and you've asked them to be nice and they're not. That's kind of obvious type of thing. The other thing that's required for this is minutes, which does not involve you guys hardly at all. You're not taking minutes or anything like that, but you do have some duties. And one of your duties is that you have to approve the minutes. Every now and then, a council member will surprise me by saying, oh yeah, this right here has a blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, they read the minutes. You know, I didn't know they actually did that. One thing that the minutes would come around, they say, I need a motion to approve the minutes. And everybody goes. And sure as the day's long, one of them will say, I abstain, I wasn't at the meeting. Which is fine. But if you need 4 votes to pass something, and you only got 4 people there, your quorum, and the one says, I can't approve it, and you're like, well, we can't approve the minutes now. That's not true. You can approve minutes for a meeting you weren't at if you reviewed those minutes and they look right to you. by, you don't know what they said, you can't speak that. But if they look to be in order, and we all know that Miss Smith always does the minutes, and these look right, you can approve them. So you don't have to abstain just because you're out. And I get that question all the time. Also, I have somebody who said, well, the minute said I said blah, blah, blah. What I meant was, no. I mean, you have to have a motion to approve a change to the minutes. But if it's like, I don't remember, I thought what you said was, I'm pretty sure you said, no, you can't do this, type of thing. And now you're saying, no, you can't do this, but, no. So you just kind of want to watch out for that type of stuff. Also, executive session, which we will beat to death in just a few minutes. Oh man, lunch is coming out. That's what I hate it. I was like, good stuff. Minutes for executive session. There is no minutes in an executive session. But your minutes have to say why you went into executive session. Why? Out of all the open meetings law cases, I would say well over half are because guys messed up in executive session. I mean, there's rarely we didn't have a majority and we did this. I mean, that's obvious, you just count. But all the rules for executive session are so convoluted that they get messed up constantly, just absolutely constantly. Now, if you don't know, executive session, like we said, public meetings are open. But, because there's always a but, if you're going to discuss one of the big 6, 7 topics, you actually can go into executive session, which means you can leave the room, go into the back room and talk about it till your heart's content, be free to speak up, and nothing leaves executive session. Maybe. It's a secret, yeah. And so it's a secret, and then I get a call the next day, said, did you see Bill's Facebook post? He put everything out that we talked about in executive session. Can we kick him off of council? Can we get him arrested? What can we do? And the answer is, there's nothing that says thou shalt not divulge executive session material in the Ohio Revised Code. There's not. But what there is there's an ethics provision that says you have an ethical duty to keep things confidential if you're supposed to keep things confidential. And there's this big convoluted case that looks and says, was it called on for the right purpose? Meaning, did it meet one of the requirements? Should the people have known that it was supposed to be a secret? There's this whole thing. But the bottom line is, if you squeal about something in executive session, there could be an ethics issue involved. It's a whole nother, I think there's an ethics session somewhere later. This is more of the whole executive session stuff. Again, executive session, you can discuss, but you can't deliberate. And this is what the law says about executive session. It's called my get out of jail free card. And what that means is you guys all go into executive session to discuss the city manager. We're going to executive session to discuss the employment of the city manager. You go back there and you come out and you say, I make a motion to fire the city manager. I second it. All in favor? Aye. Bam. He's gone. Choom. That's a problem because why? Why did you do that? Well, we talked about it in executive session. That's what we decided. That is an invalid act. City manager is not fired. Tell your interim city manager to get away from his desk, bring the other guy in here, and you fire him the right way. If you all the city manager has to do is say, they went to executive session, they came out, they voted, they violated the law, and the court's going to say, Bert, you're right. If they passed a resolution that had what I call the magic language, which is just this rephrased, that says basically all people here voting are attesting that this stuff was discussed in an open meeting and it wasn't in violation of law. And if you have that, the judge is going to say, I don't think these 7 people lie. It's in there. Bert, it's up to you to prove they did wrong. It's a shifting of the burden. Whew, this thing just flies everywhere, doesn't it? So if you do not have that on your ordinances and resolutions, language to that effect, talk to your law director and say, we need that language because it's really going to save our butt sometime. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but someday in the future, you'll be happy you came to my daughter's wedding, for all of those who know what I'm talking about right there. Here's the big 6, and there's actually 7, but these are the ones that show up more often. I'm going to be talking about each one of these more. Am I out of time? Are you serious?
I mean, time goes really fast when you're having fun.
Oh my gosh. So I'll be around if you guys have questions. I'm gonna fly through this. The employment stuff, you can't just say to discuss the employment of, you have to give a little bit more to sort of the employment, the promotion, whatever. And you have to say kind of like of a public official, but you don't have to do the name. These right here, this one always gets messed up. If you guys want to purchase property and go into executive session, free for all. If you want to sell property, you can't. It's not the same thing. It can only be to sell property in lieu of competitive bidding if it will give somebody an advantage, which is really screwy, really scary. And so whenever you go into an executive session to sell city property, one of the things you guys should say is, can we do this through competitive bidding? And someone else will say, well, it's probably not going to work very well. You're covered. That's how I look at that. Do not go into an executive session for pending or imminent litigation without an attorney. If you do, you just broke the law. Attorney has to be there, and you can't say Bill's an attorney on council. He was there. Has to be your actual attorney. If you're talking about collective bargaining, free for all, you can go to executive session for that. I cannot fly through these ones. I will meet with all you guys. I'm going to just sit here. You come ask questions. I did not get to the public records. Some of the things I'm going to talk about is Public Records Commission. What the heck is that? An R2 form, record retention schedules, that kind of stuff. Bottom line here, I was going to give you a great horror story. If you have a personal phone, do not use it for business of the city, okay? Involved in litigation, where an interrogatory was sent, where the other party wanted the carrier for each member of council so that they could subpoena your phone records. For every council member, all your phone records were up for grabs in the court thing because they used them for personal business. It was free for them to look. So that's the bottom line. I will be here to talk. I again apologize. Cannot believe I ran out of time so fast. Yes?
Council member goes to the city attorney and asks for confidentiality, is that required of that attorney?
Generally speaking, yes. If you look at the charter, most charters will say that the law director or the city attorney acts, it could say under city council or under the city manager, meaning that's the appointing body, and represents the boards, commissions, council members. And as an attorney, if you called me up and said, I have blah, 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 yes, there is a relationship. I represent the city, but I have a confidentiality with you, let's say, that I wouldn't share with other council members. So yes, I am obligated.
Or the mayor?
Yes, you wouldn't, so if a council member comes up and says, I think there's a legal issue, we'll look at it, but I can't go to other people and say, this is what we talked about. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Can we send this PowerPoint out to them? Do you have a problem with that?
I don't think I have the pictures on this. Oh, I do. I illegally downloaded all the pictures, so I'm sure I violated somebody's copyright, so I apologize for that. This was the horror story I was going to tell you about. Don't just delete stuff. There's record retention schedules. I was going to talk about these nasty things. Oh, one last thing, executive session. There is no such thing as executive session for economic development. That is not a thing. You will see in here, I gave you have to have all of this stuff in there. I mean, it's amazing. And if you don't have the language, which even says to protect the confidentiality of the applicant. If you don't have that language, the court dinged another one, said you can't, that was improper executive session. Big deal, because executive sessions for economic development is often a big ticket item. Happy to answer those questions. So sorry I kept you for lunch. In my defense, the other guy went over, okay? So, yeah, I was going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. That was the last one. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll give you a copy of that. So.
All right, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so sorry. Went over.